In this video, we're going to be looking at this robot car. A couple of you guys will be given one of these. We'll have to learn how to program it so that we can drive it around a maze. There's a lot of different things you can do with it. You can hook up ultrasonic sensors if you get time. But at the moment, we're just going to program it to turn left, right when we tell it to. Later on, we can hook up ultrasonic sensors and it will make that choice. So what you need to do, first thing, is because it's not just using an Arduino, it's using an Arduino shield, which we need to download the shield code. So I'm going to download it from this video, but the link will be at the bottom of this YouTube video. So you're just going to open up the link, which will then bring you into your download folders. Once you've opened it up, just extract all. Alright, you want to go browse. You don't want to just put it randomly in your computer. Alright, because if you put it randomly in your computer, the Arduino code will search for it, and it will only find it in the Arduino library. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to go into your documents, find your Arduino code, which is where everything saves when you're using your Arduino, and you want to open up your libraries. Right. When you've got your libraries opened up, see I've already downloaded it here, select that folder. So I'll select this one, go extract. Right, and that'll bring up this folder here, so you'll just have this one here. If you open that up, these two here are the code that it's looking for. So if you don't have those in there, you might have to re-download it because something might not have worked properly. So once you've got them in, then we can move on to coding. Alright, now, so I'm just going to code it from scratch. Right, so we need to include that AF motor library. We have to do that first. So hashtag include. Open AF. These need to be in capital motor dot h, the little h. Alright, so now that includes that library. Alright, now because we have that library, we need to define what we're using in that library, and we're using the AF DC motor. Alright, and we're using two of them. So if we go AF capitals again, underscore DC motor. Alright, and then we're going to give our motors a variable. Sorry, motor is alright, so motor wasn't all in capitals, it was just the M. If it doesn't change color, then you know something's not right. So we have a variable, so we'll call it motor 1. Motor 1 bracket 1 bracket semicolon. Alright, and then we want to do the same thing but for motor 2. So we'll just take the shortcut, control copy, change it to a 2. Alright. So now in our void setup, we have to define our speed on our motors. So we want motor 1 dot set speed Alright, so because it hasn't changed color, capital S there, and we'll set speed to 255, which I believe is the highest speed. Oh, we're going to do that with motor 2, so same thing. Let's just copy paste 2. So that's going to set our motors up. So now we want our code. So now, what the Arduino library reads is, instead of putting a power through, so something like coding it to be like 150, that sort of variable, we can just put forward, backwards, break. Instead of break, it's release. So there's forward, backwards, and release. So they're the three that we're worried about. So if we set our variable, so we go motor 1 dot run bracket, and we'll go forward. These needs to be in capitals. If it's not in capitals, as everyone knows, Arduino is very fussy with coding, so it'll change colors. If it hasn't changed colors, you know that something's wrong. Alright, so now we just do a whole bunch of copy and paste, and we just change variables. So 2. Now that's just going to make our motors run forward consistently. Alright, so what we want to do is we want our robot to go forward for a period of time. Then we want it to turn around, and we want it to come back to us. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a delay. So this will make our robot run forward. Now we delay that. It doesn't need to be capitals. So, and then within our brackets is our time frame, how long we want to delay it for. So I believe Arduino, every 500 is a second. I think it's something like that. So 1,000 is going to be 2 seconds. So that's going to run our Arduino for 1 second. But what's going to happen now is it's going to fall into this loop. So the loop's going to cause it to just pretty much just keep going forward. So what we need to do is, if we want it to just run forward once, we have to put another variable in there. So up here, we need to put another variable. So int, and then let's use our drive as a variable. And let's say if that equals 0. Alright, so now we can use a variable here as an if statement. So we can say if our drive is equal to 0, and this bracket here, it's going to do this task. So what that's saying is the if statement will do everything in this bracket here. And then we also need to close that. Alright. So that's going to run forward and then come back up. But it's always going to be 0. So what we need to do at the end is we need to change our variable. So drive is now equal to 1. So that's going to change our variable. Alright, we don't want to close it there, we want to close it after our variable. It's going to be here. Well, which is here. Alright, so then that changes that drive. So now we need to have an else statement. So if else, what do we want our motors to do? Right. So we open up the else bracket. We don't want it to go forward, we just want it to stop. So we go release. We'll type that in here. Release, release. So now what that's going to do is our little robot is going to drive forward for 1 second. Then it's going to change the variable to 1. It's going to go back to the top loop. It's going to go if drive equals 0. It doesn't equal 0. It's going to go to else. So everything else, and it's just going to release. So it'll just turn the bot off, and it'll stay off. Because the variable is always 1. Because we changed it in the first statement. So now what we want to do is we can extend this part here to drive the bot around a bit more. So let's copy that. So what we want to do is we want to turn the bot around. So we move forward for 2 seconds. Then we want to turn the bot around. And then we want to come back to ourselves. So to turn the bot around, you can do one or two things. You can leave one motor on and turn the other motor off by putting a release, or you can leave one motor on, turn the other motor into backwards, which will then it'll spin on the spot. So we're going to do that with this one here. Right. So that's going to spin backwards. Now we don't want to do that for 2 seconds because it's probably just going to spin the whole way around, I believe. So when I was testing it, I got about 510, which it did about 180 degree turn. You might have to tweak yours depending on how quick your motors spin. That's going to be the part that'll just be different testing. Alright, now what we're doing is motors go forward, then they'll turn around and it'll come back. What I also like to do is I like to put a bit of a break in here in between all the motors doing what they're doing, just that way, and we'll just make it 100. Just that way it gets that sort of 1/10 of a second break before it then puts all the power straight back to the motors. So if you're going forward, backwards, it's a lot of power just hitting the motors, and we don't want to burn the motors out. So if we test this, alright. So let's have a look here. Something that's going wrong here. Motor 1 expected before motor 1. Oh, we've left out all the semicolons here on our delays. Right. Let's verify it again. Check it again. Drive expected semicolon. Oh, there it is. A lot of semicolons I've missed. I've also missed closing the bracket for this one up here. See how that goes. It's taking a little bit longer, so maybe on a winner. Maybe. Done. Alright, cool. So let's plug in our Arduino robot. And just make sure when you do plug it in, you keep the wheels off the ground, because it may start spinning the wheels, may start driving around somewhere. Make sure your port is set right. If it's not set on the right port, you might not be able to connect. So I already know that mine was set to COM7. Make sure you're on the right Arduino. Alright. So if we go upload, it will want you to save it first. You can save it. You're probably best to save it. Alright, now something else I like to add in, just in the void loop here, in the if statement, I like to put a delay here of 2 seconds. What that does is when you hit reset on your robot, it gives you about 2 seconds, so it doesn't start driving off. It gives you 2 seconds to take your finger away, and then your bot has got a decent takeoff without any restrictions. Alright, so we'll have a look at a quick video on that and see if it's worked out. Alright, as you can see, that's all working the way that we wanted to, so that code is pretty good.